Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for November 13th through the 19th. So, this week is about initiating new emotional experiences and moving deeper into our psychological awarenesses, our emotions, and um, really finding new ways of making meaning in our life. We'll talk about the new moon in Scorpio and then also the sun and Mars making some important aspects in Scorpio this week. My name is Shauna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and astrologer, and I'm really excited to share the astrology of this week with you. So let's talk about what's going on. We have a new moon early in the week. This is happening on Monday, November 13th at 1:27 a.m. Pacific time. So this is a new moon in Scorpio. And what is this about? So I think let me lay out sort of the itinerary here. So new moon in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, very close to where this new moon is happening. And then we also have Uranus opposite this new moon. And then we also have Neptune making a trine to this new moon. So several different factors that flavor this particular Scorpio new moon. Now, new moons are always this time of initiating something new, whether that is a new experience or a new idea or awakening a new way of thinking about something. And this is an emotional situation, really. Like sometimes new moons are about new manifestation, something that's in our physical life, but often it's more of an inner experience or an inner awareness that sometimes correlates to something on the outside. And uh, what's really cool about new moons is we can track these as they move through the zodiac. So, for example, our last new moon was in the sign of Libra. That one happened to be a solar eclipse, in fact. And then before that, we had a new moon in Virgo. And so now so we had Virgo and then Libra and now Scorpio. And then we know that the next new moon will be in Sagittarius. And so we're tracking this progression of the newness through the zodiac, through our birth charts as well. And so right now, we're in a new moon that is about Scorpio themes, which are about water, like the water element, which is about emotions and relationships. And it's a fixed sign, it's a fixed modality. So water is the element, fixed is the modality. And fixed signs are about rooting deeply into something, about making something more sustainable, more functional, fleshing things out, like continuing to develop something that has already been started. And so when we have a new moon in this sign, this is about initiating a new beginning around any themes that involve emotions, relationships, especially deeply bonded and intimate relationships. And also the deep and emotional part of ourselves that's connected to how we experience bonding, how we experience relationships, how we experience intimacy in all manner of ways. And so these are some of my thoughts about Scorpio and the new moon. And I think that, with Scorpio, we can sort of, if we Google things or look online or even read books, Scorpio tends to be one of the signs that has a lot of negative connotations. And I think there's a certain element of fear around Scorpio. And I would encourage us to sort of like reel things back a little bit and to look at, okay, what actually is Scorpio about? And what am I afraid of? Because I think at its essence, Scorpio is yes, Scorpio is, there's an intensity to it. There's kind of an edge to it. It's not like an easy breezy, carefree kind of energy, but that's okay because we need experiences. We crave experiences, I would even say, that are intense, that are where there's like a vividness, where there is a sense of intensity or aliveness, or there's like something that pulls us in. This is all Scorpio energy. And so I would wonder, with this new moon, what is it that you feel is, where are you feeling pulled or drawn? What pulls you in? What compels you? What evokes strong emotions? And our strong emotions are indicators. Also, they tell us about uh, what our hopes, dreams, desires, and fears are, and they really help us understand ourselves. And so, for this reason, I think that Scorpio season, a new moon in Scorpio, a placement in Scorpio, can be used to further our understanding of ourselves when we treat it psychologically, when we treat it with curiosity, and we're like, ooh, like there's this kind of feeling that there's this intense emotion that's coming up. I wonder what this means. I wonder what my psyche is communicating to me through this feeling, and sort of like taking a feeling and looking at it in the way that we would inspect an interesting object. So, okay, so the other piece of this, yes, is that Mars is here as well. And so Mars is a planet that is about action, confrontation, being direct, being bold, fighting for things, advocating for things. Yes, it's certainly about aggression and assertiveness and even anger and frustration, but it's also about fighting for something, standing up for something. There's kind of like this ability to meet something, to like push up against something. That's kind of the Mars energy. And when Mars is in Scorpio, it takes on the way of expressing all of these themes, confrontation, directness, being bold, being decisive, like literally taking action. There's this Scorpio way of being, which is taking action in a way that's like, okay, what am I furthering? What am I moving towards? There's kind of more of like a calculatedness, I think, with Mars and Scorpio. It's it's there's kind of a slower pace with Mars and Scorpio, because again, it's a fixed sign. So fixed signs, there is more of a long term, it's kind of a slow down kind of thing. And so I think with Mars being here, I think there's a sense of passion and drive that gets infused with this new moon and with any topics that this new moon is related to. And so I think this is actually like, yes, sure. I think that Mars is also a planet that we can tend to have a little fear around. And because oftentimes Mars is associated with breaking or severing or cutting, or things kind of, there being like a separation essentially, versus Venus, for example, is about bringing things together. Mars is about making a clear delineation line. And that's not always bad, right? Sometimes we need clear delineation. Sometimes it's appropriate for a situation for us to advocate for something or to push back on something. Sometimes that's beneficial. And so for you, I would be really curious on what your relationship is to the typical Mars symbols, and how you see that energy having space in your life during this week, but also during the whole next monthly lunar cycle. Yeah, where is there room for action, passion, desire, drive, like, yeah, like really being bold and doing so in a way that is meaningful, which is the Scorpio piece here. So yeah, where is there a place for that in your life? Where would you like that to be? What would you like that to look like? Now, the other piece of this too is that Uranus is opposite this new moon. So Uranus is in Taurus, about 21 degrees of Taurus. And so Uranus is about change, radical, rapid transition, spontaneous change. It's also it's a motivation for breaking out of an old pattern or breaking out of something that has felt stifling for too long. It's also about breaking or questioning. And if you've been watching my videos, you're like, yeah, Shauna, I know, Uranus. It's like, it has us questioning, like, why am I doing what I've been doing? Am I doing this because I actually want to, or because it's expected of me? People think I should, like any kind of like, oh, I should do this or I should be that way. Like Uranus has us kind of questioning those sort of statements. And there's a possibility for opening up to a sense of more freedom, feeling unhindered, and like feeling like we can shed some of the feeling of weight or responsibility that we've been feeling. And so I think it's really interesting that we have these two very dynamic planets, Mars and then Uranus, that are connected in with this new moon. So like this is like you know, when I'm feeling into Mars Uranus, there's kind of like a little bit of angstiness. There's kind of like, like I want to do something, and yeah, I want to change. I want to do something. And so what is that? What's that? I think also that wanting a change, that kind of, it feels like a very adolescent kind of feeling tone to me. And so there's a desire for something. There's a desire for change, I think, when I see this. And so of course, life is changing for all of us all the time. And at this particular moment in the astrology, this particular week, okay, there's a strong desire for change, and it's connecting in with a new moon, which is about planting or initiating this new change. And in a small way, there's something minor that we start to do that continues to build like a snowball. Okay. And then the other piece, yeah, there's a lot going on with this new moon, right? So the other piece of this new moon is that Neptune is making a trine. So Neptune has been in Pisces for quite some time. It's at about 25 degrees of Pisces. And so let's see, what do I think about this? I kind of like this because Neptune trining, there's like some support around imagination, around creativity, around having a corrective emotional experience through thinking about what else is possible in your life. Neptune is very connected to our ideals, our fantasies, our imagination. Of course, it can also be a sense of delusion and like thinking that things are one way when the consensus reality is very different than that. And I think that when Neptune is trine here, we can connect in to that intuition, that that vision in a way that's helpful, in a way where it's additive to our experience. It's helpful in some way. And so, you know, that's going to be more subtle because it is a trine, but I would just keep that in mind, that there's there is support here when we can imagine what's possible. Now, if you have a practice that involves creativity or mindfulness in some way, that's definitely helpful to infuse that into this week, because Neptune is all about altered states of consciousness in whichever way we do that, and getting into these flow states, whether that is through art or mindfulness or even a formal meditative kind of practice, or even simply being in nature or taking taking a bath or something like this. Anything that we can do to sort of infuse Neptune into this day, into this energy, this lunar cycle, there's an added benefit. Now let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna pull some cards for you, but I also want to note that so we're in the waxing phase essentially all week, which is where the moon is growing after that new moon in Scorpio on Monday. And there's this sense of moving forward. And the 2 weeks following a new moon is energetically, emotionally, it's a time where there's an emphasis on taking action, taking risks, putting yourself out there, things like this. So I want you to get a feel for, this is the kind of energy that we're moving into this week and the next week. And then that culminates when we have our full moon in Gemini on Monday, November 27th. And then we'll have our next new moon in Sagittarius on Tuesday, December 12th. So this is like the time frame that this lunar cycle in Scorpio is essentially from November 13th through December 12th. So this full month of really feeling into this, what are the new beginnings around finding a deeper meaning, working with the emotional context of something, working with that Mars, Uranus, where there's a desire for more freedom, but also greater sense of inner alignment. We could also call this integrity. We could also call this individuation, self-actualization. It's really about getting closer to the self and getting closer to the self and doing so in a way where you also still feel connected in your community, in your family or your chosen family, where there's not a sacrificing of self in order to be with others, sort of this balancing back and forth. Okay. So I pulled 3 cards for you. First card is the Ace of Wands. And so the Ace, of course, is a new beginning. It's really funny that we got this card during a new moon week. So Ace is, yes, about a new beginning. I think the big thing with the Ace, like the new moon, is that it's like the very start. It's like the conception of a thing. So it's not like the thing on a plate. It's like the little seed that's planted. And then wands are about passion, creativity, can even be about business or projects that we're working on, things that require our psycho-spiritual emotional energy, that like require our enthusiasm in some way. So I'm just gonna put that right there. That feels very much like the Mars element here. So when I see this, I'm like, okay, what are you excited about? What is something new that's coming into being for you? And then I pulled the 5 of Swords. Okay, interesting. So the 5 of Swords is about like this desire to kind of, how do I say it? The 5 of Swords is kind of like wanting to be right, but then is being right costing you in the situation? is that having repercussions that are alienating in some way? And I pulled this reversed. So this tells me that there's something here around working out, I think, what you need in whatever this scenario is. And it's really about like give and take and compromise. And I think the core of this card is, what's the end result that you want that will make you happy? Because a lot of this card is about kind of like being more in the moment and being like, ah, I don't like this. I'm annoyed. And it's kind of like being more, being more in the emotion of the moment, and then figuring out, okay, like, what do we want to do with this? Do we need to do something about what's happening now? Or is there a way uh, to process or to communicate or to make compromises in a way that gets you to where you actually want to be? I hope that makes sense. And the image on here is a rose coming through an hourglass here. So I'm seeing this as kind of like weighing the pros and the cons and figuring out what feels good to you. That it is reversed tells me that there's like there's a figuring out, like the what do you call it? The hourglass is getting flipped over. So there's kind of this like maybe change in your perception that's happening. Again, I'm also reading this as kind of like over the next month as well, since we're really talking about the lunar cycle. Okay. And then the last card that I pulled is the Nine of Pentacles. And this card is about, so pentacles typically are about material concerns, practical stuff, can be finances, can be work, income, can be things like living situation, self-care, our health, like all of the more practical things in life. Nine of Pentacles is about having all of your needs met, all of the practical things, not just that you need, but the things that you want also. So there's something here. It's interesting that it's at the end where there's this culmination of having what you need and want and desire. That is like there's some sort of culmination here. That is. Okay, yeah, this is the way that I'm reading this. Okay, cool. So, so we have the Ace of Wands, the first card. There's something new that's starting. There's a new desire. There's a new beginning. There's an initiation of something, and we may not even know consciously what that is yet. We're kind of like figuring that out. And then there's something here around figuring out where, how, if, compromises. What do we do now to get to where we want to be? And so it's kind of like there's the beginning, there's the middle process of figuring out and maybe like turning things different ways a couple of times to figure out what it is, like how it is to proceed to really get to where we want to be. And I think with the Nine of Pentacles, there's also this figure. So the Nine of Pentacles, I also pulled reverse. And this to me tells that there's something here still to be figured out, that there is some uncertainty about the end goal or what the ideal is. So I hope that you found this helpful. I am sending you so much love and wishing you a wonderful week. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.